Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are warned that the following content may contain images and voices of deceased persons. This video has been created to provide staff with basic awareness of the local history of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, with the aim to ensure staff are aware of how BRHS has responded with implementing resources to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander patients entering our health service. BRHS is committed to closing the health gap of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. Information in this training is designed to ensure you are aware of the incentives available to help provide a culturally safe environment and to improve the hospital experience and healthcare outcomes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
Womaninji, we'd like to acknowledge the Gunai people, the traditional owners on whose land the hospital sits.
We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs, knowledge, resilience and relationship with the lands. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging and thank them for their contribution to our health services. This map of Gippsland shows the 5 clans of the Gunai. The Crowatungalung occupied the land east of Lake's entrance and a strip east of the Snowy River. The Burbulalong includes the Tambo, Nicholson and Mitchell rivers and their tributaries west of Providence Ponds. The Barrakalong occupied the land west of Providence Ponds and takes in the Avon, McAllister, Thompson and Latrobe rivers to the junction of the 2 lakes. The Barratullalung occupied the land between the Latrobe River and Cape Liptrap, from the southern watershed taking in the sea and Nurak, the traditional name for the prom. The Tatungalung occupied the land and water between the Gippsland Lakes and the sea, taking in the islands. The Gunai moved around the land, following the seasonal cycles with food, and camped along the coast, along the rivers and in the high country. The 5 clans of Gippsland's Gunai people were impacted severely at the time of colonisation. They were stripped of their connection to land, family, tradition and a harmonious way of life. In the 1800s, there were many massacres of Aboriginal people in Gippsland.
There are many examples of the atrocities, or I'll say that, I'll be quite blunt, massacres. Recorded and unrecorded massacres throughout Gippsland. My role at the keeping place, the Kutungan keeping place, is to teach young children of all ages, teach adults as well, the tourists that come through this area, the true history of Australia basically, and the true history of Gippsland, making sure people are aware of the atrocities what happened, but also what needs to happen as well into the future. And also the history of Lake Torres as well, why that was there, how people were forcibly removed from other country onto Lake Torres.
In 1861, the Lake Torres Mission was established. Aboriginal people were forced off traditional lands and onto these newly established missions. It was intended that the churches would civilise and Christianise the Aboriginal people and to educate the children in Western ways. The mission was managed by white missionaries and life was very isolated. Residents could only consult the doctor who visited the settlement once a month if the manager's wife approved. The gate to the reserve was locked and if residents left without permission, they were fined. If people entered the reserve without permission, they were summoned for trespass. It was against government's regulations for residents to own a car, so if they wanted to go into town at Lake's entrance, they walked the 25 kilometres to get there. From the late 1800s right through to the 1970s, many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children were forcibly removed from their families and stripped of their cultural connections. These stolen generations were either placed in institutions or adopted by non-Indigenous families. This period also saw Aboriginal people faced with terrible mistreatment and discrimination. The original Bairnsdale Hospital on McKean Street was built in 1887 on Baroola country. It was relocated to its current location in Day Street in 1940. The Bairnsdale Hospital was also the scene of racial discrimination and was viewed with mistrust by the Aboriginal community.
The black babies would be put on the veranda and the white babies stayed inside.
My mother, she had 8 children and she only had 1 in hospital because she didn't like going to the doctors.
In the early 60s, you couldn't get your own family doctor. When you went to mainstream health services like hospitals, you were put on the bottom of the list.
These stories and memories still impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' perceptions of the healthcare setting today. It was only in 1962 that Aboriginals were given the right to vote. The 1967 referendum saw the highest yes vote in Australians' history, with over 90% voting yes to Aboriginals being counted in the census, and that the Commonwealth Government take charge of Aboriginal affairs, effectively acknowledging Aboriginal people as citizens within their own country. Bairnsdale Hospital's first Aboriginal liaison officer, Arnie Helen Morgan, was employed in 1982.
When I put in for my, put in for the job, I was so shy and all that stuff that goes with it. And oh my goodness, I hope that I can land this job, And I went home after the interviews and everything, and a couple of days later I got the news that, I got the job. My desk was situated down in the hallway there somewhere. Everything's sort of changed, I don't know where, but along there somewhere. Every morning I'd do my rounds and go to the desks or into the wards then if there's some queries in there, and that didn't stop me from saying hello to non-Aboriginal patients and stuff like that. I really loved it.
There are still many challenges and barriers today in Aboriginal health. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people still experience fear and anxiety when accessing health services, with many still affected by intergenerational trauma. There is genuine concern about being treated differently or stereotyped, judged because of their cultural origin. There can be embarrassment or cultural shame to access help for their medical concerns, with some patients waiting until the issue is very serious. Sometimes patients leave hospital against medical advice or do not wait because they start to feel a little better. These and other factors contribute to critical health and life expectancy gaps between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and other Australians. In November 2008, the Commonwealth and all state and territory governments signed the National Indigenous Reform Agreement, committing to 6 national target areas, one of which is health. In 2015, the hospital's then CEO, Teresa Tini, signed the Close the Gap statement, demonstrating our commitment in aligning with the Australian Government to close the health gap. This commitment is also demonstrated through the range of initiatives taking place at Bairnsdale Regional Health Service.
To help the community engage with BRHS, efforts have been made to change the environment and make it feel more culturally welcoming for the community. BRHS has installed a large selection of artwork, including painting and sculptures. Visitors are greeted by The Footprints, which were designed by local artist Brad Brown and local community elders. A large mural called Seed of Hope, also by Brad Brown, can be found between oncology and the consulting rooms. BRHS also engaged local Gunai-Kurnai artist Shane O'Shannessy to design a logo for Aboriginal health initiatives. It features a blue wren, which is a local totem called Yirang, well recognised by the Gunai-Kurnai community. BRHS has also named buildings, wards and meeting rooms in local language. planted a cultural garden using plants and grasses of significance to the Gunai-Kurnai community, with many species being edible or medicinal. And we proudly fly and display the Aboriginal flag at the hospital entrance and throughout the premises as a sign of respect to the community. Another important initiative in closing the gap is the correct identification of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander patients. We do this by asking all patients the question of origin. Are you of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander origin? The healthcare journey starts by asking this question and allows staff to connect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with pathways that support their healthcare journey. It is mandatory to ask the question of origin. It can be asked at all admission and registration points throughout the hospital or healthcare journey. A video produced by BRHS and the Heart Foundation contains further information and training on the importance of asking the question of origin and can be found by visiting the Aboriginal Health Unit intranet page. If a patient identifies as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander and gives consent, a flag sticker is placed on the front of the patient's medical file. If the patient identifies as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, then both flag stickers are put on their medical file. A small flag sticker is also placed on the patient's discharge scripts prior to going to pharmacy. If a patient has identified as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander and has an aged care package, this bright pink label is placed on the inside of their medical record file. This alerts staff that the patient is on a package and they must contact the patient's case manager to alert the manager that their client is in hospital. BRHS has also developed specific forms used for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander patient admission and discharge. These forms feature targeted questions alerting staff to offer support and services and also ensure family or key workers are notified of the admission. The hospital has its own care coordinator within the Aboriginal Health Unit, with the expertise to manage complex discharges for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander patients.
It's really important that we get this right from the start for our patients' hospital journey, and these forms really help build that rapport and get the key people involved with their care for admission and discharge home.
The Aboriginal Health Unit is located in the main corridor of the hospital. This team consists of a Koori Hospital Liaison Officer, KHLO, an Access and Support Worker, and a Care Coordinator who all have a strong commitment to building culturally responsive care and support at the hospital and in the community to break down barriers for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people accessing healthcare. The Aboriginal Health Unit should be contacted if a patient has identified as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander and given their consent to receive a visit. The Warrawee Room is located next to the Aboriginal Health Unit. Warrawee is a Gunai-Kurnai word meaning come rest a while. The Warrawee Room is a place for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and their family and friends to use while in hospital. It's a safe space to yarn, gather information, educate and share stories and ideas. BRHS's commitment to closing the health gap and improving health outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people is also evident in our self-funded subsidised discharge medication for Aboriginal patients, known as G1 scripts. G1 is Gunai language for the Australian bracken fern, a symbolic plant traditionally used by the Gunai-Kurnai for its medicinal properties. The G1 Scripts initiative has helped the hospital to significantly lower readmissions. In addition to the G1 Scripts, bulk billing has also been written into policy at BRHS. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander patients can access medical imaging and consulting room services via bulk billing. Please refer to the BRHS patient fees and charges policy or speak with the practice manager for more information. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander resource folder can be found at the main desk of all wards and intake points throughout the hospital. The bright red folders are easily identifiable and contain resources and support for staff and information and contact details from local Aboriginal community-controlled health organisations, ACCHOs, including services, transport and follow-up medical care. BRHS has also implemented a handy ACCHO contact card to the staff lanyards. These are given to all new staff at orientation, or you can request one from the Aboriginal Health Unit. Working together with local ACHOs is crucial to closing the health gap. BRHS is heavily involved through regular meetings, shared events and project collaboration. Another fantastic resource for all staff is available on the BRHS intranet under the Teams tab. The Aboriginal Health Unit intranet page contains up-to-date and interesting information on current initiatives and events, and links to important documents. BRHS has also formed the Aboriginal Resource Group, ARG, to provide a forum for staff who have demonstrated a commitment and desire to improve the service BRHS delivers to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The ARG coordinates information, education and support which is taken back to staff work areas. BRHS also chooses to celebrate events and significant dates to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. All staff are able to participate in these events, helping them further their understanding of local culture and history. NAIDOC Week is the biggest celebration on our calendar, and all wards and areas are encouraged to create a NAIDOC display, with the winner receiving the much sought-after Boomerang Award. The BRHS's commitment to closing the health gap for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people has been formalised through its inclusion in our operational policies, guidelines, sponsorships, employment plans and training programs. From the CEO down, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health is a top priority for the BRHS.
Healthcare executives can enable a whole-of-organisation approach to addressing the closing the gap targets relating to health. We can do this by supporting strategies that enable accurate identification of patients at all entry points. This should become an established process that enables the pathway to safe and effective care.
BRHS has been recognised as an exemplar hospital in both the NSQHS Guide to Better Care for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Communities and the Improving Cultural Responsiveness for Victorian Hospitals Final Report 2017 for work done to improve consumer engagement, access to services and medications, and the reduction in unplanned readmissions. To learn more about the Gunai-Kurnai people's culture and history, the BRHS recommends a visit to the Croathunkalung Keeping Place in Bairnsdale, where you can further your understanding of cultural issues and barriers in the healthcare setting. The BRHS also organise Keeping Place tours during NAIDOC Week. Cultural awareness videos can also be viewed via the Aboriginal Health Unit intranet page.
Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health is everybody's business. We thank you for your time and look forward to working with you on improving health outcomes for our community. So the Gunai-Kurnai language for goodbye is Yarrabi. So Yarrabi.